Hey, yes, this works. Thank you very much. First of all, also welcome to our invited speakers, which is Professor Maria Chiara Pastore from Politecnico di Milano in Italy. Thank you. And Dr. Marco Roos from Naturalis. And we are still expecting Dr. Wiebke Klem from the city of Den Haag. And she will come a bit later. Each of us will have their own story, and I will kick off with, well, what do we do actually here at this university, and how to put this afternoon a bit in perspective. So ecological urbanism at TU Delft, I will use a lot of student projects of graduation work over the past years. Right, so this is a nice image from Haagse Bos, I think, many years ago, but well, for a lot of Dutch people, of course, not an unfamiliar face. But let's ecology, what is it? I mean, because yeah, we all know what it is, but what is it? And just a bit freshening up. So all organisms are interdependent and they interact with one another and the physical environment. So let's say the living environment and the non-living environment. And then often people say, yeah, biodiversity, why is that important? Biodiversity is basically the genetic difference, the species difference, but also the biotopes, different habitats which we face. And yeah, you can always compare it with, well, this tower on the right-hand side, the Kapla-toren, or the little wooden blocks tower. Well, if you take enough species out, it will collapse. And that's basically what many people do not realize, but what still is happening all the time. I will not go too deeply in this because Marco Roos from Naturalis is much more an expert on this than I am. Well, there's some different people, different ages here. Some of you have seen this slide from me in the lecture, so if you have, don't answer. But if you don't have seen this slide yet, who knows what this is? This is a film from the 1990s. Yes, you said it as well, Waterworld from Kevin Costner. And yeah, when I saw that film, it's 300 years ahead, and they were actually looking for mountains, or basically islands, which are our mountains right now, because all the ice has melted, and they have these floating villages on land, and they are hunting for resources. So that is well, far future, or maybe not, not that far. What is this? Yeah, the Dust Bowls in the United States in the 1930s. So the younger students, they should know what this film is. Anyone? Interstellar. So here they fly to another planetary system, and the only thing you can see is cornfields, and dry land, sandstorms, as if it was the future. But basically, we had this in the 1930s in the US because they took away all the grassland with 2 meter, 1 meter, 2 meter long root systems, planted back corn, and then when there was a drought, all the land was taken away by the wind. And it still is happening in Kazakhstan, Aralmere, you name it, all these semi-desert regions of the world. So the future is here already. So we have to deal with this, and because of this, it's a thing up there as well. It's okay. So, well, so because of this, the United Nations declared this decade of preventing, halting, and reversing the degradations of ecosystems worldwide. And we thought, as a faculty or as our group, this is something we need to act on and need to work with. It's not working. Okay, thank you. So we yesterday we announced that TU Delft has decided to become part of this movement. It's called Nature Plus. So instead of low carbon or climate adaptation, TU Delft is also now part in cooperation with Andy van der Dobbelsteen to be part of this group, which will be announced next week in Montreal. So yeah, we have also kind of obligation to be active there. Okay, so that's about the funny stuff and what the films, etc. So urban ecology is of course the whole of interactions of organisms, built structures and physical environment where people are concentrated. So it's a bit of ecology, but then in an urban environment. And well, let's say, correct me if I'm wrong, Marco, but this is maybe as a classical biologist would look like urban ecology. You know, this is a sunflower, then there's an insect, or at least to ecology. And then this insect gets eaten by a bird. And then this bird maybe gets eaten from the peregrine falcon, the slechtvalk, which is breeding up in the tower there. So that is the biological approach to what is happening in the city. But we as architects, urban planners, landscape architects, well, this has been designed as well many years ago, in the 1950s. But this wall has never been designed to be bioreceptive, so that plants can grow on it, so that birds can use it and insects. So why not take this a step further and do this right now? Or even look at the urban system, how the buildings are formed, maybe like an urban valley. So these are new concepts we will have to look into and take a step further. Also, our students, this is one of our former students, excuse me, well, he drew the TU Delft for the campus actually. At the end is, there you see, this is the tower here at the Bouwkunde. He said, well, there's rocks, there's woodlands, there's grass, and there's water, kind of, as kind of different biotopes and habitat. And this was his way to show our campus for nature, for birds. And we did since then also many projects on campus. We have this yearly elective course. And yeah, we build gardens, we do something with bee burrows, etc., to get the students involved in this nature positive thinking, to take away the tiles in front of the dean's room and put plants in there, to have the beer garden or whatever it's called near the Bouwpub also planted, to have soft edges instead of hard edges, you name it. But there's one big thing we would like to focus a bit more attention to than we have done so far, and that is the attention to soils. So how do we go from a green structure to a green-blue structure to, and we learned that from the book from Niels Zwart, who's also here in the audience, to green, blue, brown, and black structure, because black is dark at night, good for nightlife, for nocturnal life, such as bats and certain insects and plants. So it's not just the green area. So we are looking for this eco-campus to change University of Delft into an eco-campus. And well, we've done a bit of this. And maybe, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to show it, but also the climate forest at the square with René van der Velde is thinking that we have this urban climate forest, which will be a bit more deeper so that it is wet and that we have a kind of wadi with many trees in and where students can sit, etc. So this is what is happening now. We are doing that with Rosa, René, but also with Hosper Landscape Architects, and the Dean is very much in favor of it. So that's very nice that we have a lot of stuff happening here at the university. But why urban ecology at TU Delft? Marina Alberti already called in 2009. She said, yeah, we need other disciplines than just biology to make this discipline much richer. So we are looking to urban ecosystem restoration strategies, exactly what the United Nations are now asking for. So our main goal is how can we translate these principles which we find to biodiversity and ecological challenges, to site-specific spatial design, spatial quality, and spatial experience. So we have a role there as students and researchers, and well, together with people in the cities to make this happen. But be aware, urban ecology or ecology is not just about the birds and the bees only. It's not just about adding some bird nests or bird boxes or bat boxes. It's more than that. A lot of research shows that ecology can or should actually be the basis for new urban planning. That's why we are here for ecological urbanism. And well, we see that around us, many ecosystem services we get from green, or nature, vegetation, quality of life. You see all the things, clean air, clean soil, clean water, recreation, you name it. And so there's a need for this apart from that, yeah, nature is just fun and happy and nice to be in, I think. So what we usually do is that we look at the bioregion. This is Western Europe, but it can also be a polder system or a tributary river, a smaller river of this. And we look at what is the biosystem of this we are looking at. And then we look at natural layers, or an agricultural layer in this case, and because this is, yeah, in some cities, this is still the basis which we have to deal with. Certain parts in Rotterdam still have this underneath in the system. So that is what we can work with. But yeah, there's also a city built on top of that. And each neighborhood has specific characteristics of green, of housing, of different roofs, different architecture, density, you name it. And so this is a study from BirdLife Netherlands that each neighborhood, and Natuurmuseum Rotterdam is also very involved. There's also many of these studies. Each neighborhood has certain target species in the whole of the Netherlands. So you can see that every type of neighborhood has similar target species, but the question is, can we go for specific ones in specific areas? There's also a strong link between nature, health, and well-being. So of course, where it's green, people feel happier, people feel healthier. And of course, so also the distance to green is then very important. And you might have heard of this one already by Cecile Konijnendijk, one of our famous colleagues, and 330-300 rule. He says basically, well, when you look outside, we should be able to see 3 trees from a window. We should be able to be in a neighborhood with 30% tree coverage. In the Netherlands, 19 is, I think, average or quite high already. So there are neighborhoods who have much less. And we should be from about 300 meters from a green area or green park of 1 hectare or bigger. Yeah, but of course, local situations differ a lot. Then, of course, when explaining and working with students, and also to get a grip on this ourselves, we think, how can we make this next step? Because it's more than that, because we are intervening in a system. So we look at the water cycle, the nitrogen cycle, or other cycles, carbon, or even migration of certain animal types. And so when we have a natural system, of course, the urban system is built on top and messes everything up. It messes things up, because we extract water, we use it, we clean it, and then throw it in the river again. But yeah, and then the water table sinks with all the effects of different habitats, etc. So why not use it, clean it, and put it back? So have more circular systems. Yes, of course, there's a scale to that, but there's different solutions to deal with this. So we came up with this approach at 3 levels to look at basically systems, habitat, and species, where each step there is a design intervention possible at systems level, habitat, and species level. So at systems level, and I've been trying to throw these sheets out for many years because I thought they were too old. But they keep coming back and they are too good not to keep them in because I have not found good replacements yet. And that is this water story from Rotterdam, where they looked at how much precipitation should we store in Rotterdam. Should we build a pond or something else on the left-hand map? Or the other map is what is the quality in the neighborhoods? So is there good public space? Is there good housing? And with this in mind, I said, okay, let's solve the water problem, but at the same time solve the issues in the neighborhood. So that's why they came up in 2005 already with this vision of Sponge City, River City, and Canal City. And this is what I think about, dealing at systems level. And that's where all the Water Square and the other projects followed from the Urbanisten and our friend Florian Boer, who built and designed these water squares. So just to show what are the steps we did here at that moment is that, of course, we did a flow analysis, so define a baseline. We built schemes, a quick sketch of what can we do. That can be like a 7-year-old on the left or more advanced schemes on the right, the relationship between flows, but also the assumptions of possible futures, because what we will build is not for 1 year, it's hopefully for 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 years. And what are challenges there? And can we use some potential mapping or biotope mapping? And then we can come up with a spatial strategy or vision, and then a design, an intervention which improves the quality of life or the system. So this is basically how we try to deal with that. A student last year picked up this system. She said, she looked at the carbon cycle. So she said, we are putting sand on all these peat areas in the Netherlands, in the West. So 1 or 2 meters of sand, then it sinks, the methane goes into the air. We build on the sand, -4 meters. We pump away the water eternally. Well, that is a bit stupid. Well, it has been perfect for the past few 100 years. But with what we know now, this student says, well, maybe we should go another direction. Maybe we should learn to live with the water and the peat again, so that we can leave the methane in, let the peat grow, so that we combine nature and housing, combine peat and wetlands. And this is happening more and more, and these thoughts are changing as we speak. And so combine these landscapes and store, so know where the carbon sources are and know where the carbon sinks are. So that was systems level. So then to go to the habitat level, and I would like to have this theory by Foreman, which basically said, oh, we have a patch, a matrix, sorry, which is the overall main biotope. So let's say grassland. Then we have woodlands as the patches, and then the river as a corridor, and maybe the tree lines also as a corridor. But as an architect, what would you build here? Or here, or here? Here I might see Frank Lloyd Wright, you know, falling water in Pennsylvania, but you never know what to do. So with this in mind, you have a different kind of tool set from architecture. Then creating conditions in a tidal river is another one to dive into these habitats. For instance, making little dams so that each time the tide comes in, it flows into this system, or every 2 weeks only in this system. So you create different biotopes for different species of bird and plants. This is a student project a student of mine did last year or 2 years ago. She said we have this, the Dortselaan in Rotterdam, which is a 3 kilometer long street. It goes through peat, clay, sand, and different types, high, a little bit lower, wet, dry, some parts flood. But she says it's all platanus trees. So why don't we say this is a linear forest with many different trees, different species, young, old, make the road wider, smaller, so that it's more resilient to drought, it's more resilient to flooding, and maybe also nicer and even better for biodiversity. So this whole way of thinking of designing cities only with the same species, of course, a lane is sometimes very good for orientation or to drive to your castle, of course. But it's the same in neighborhoods. Every sideway of a sideway of a sideway is now a lane. Maybe that should be a neighborhood forest where you live in. And so that is a project she did then. This is quite famous example in China, where I think 10 or 20 years ago, they tried to clean this waterway with these plants, and by doing that, so ecological restoration, they cleaned the water, but also made it more accessible. So that's another way of creating a habitat and working with design. So I think as landscape architects, urban planners, we should be more used to creating biotope maps, work with ecologists. What are we aiming for? This is the interaction between, let's say, the planner and the biologist or the ecologist. So these can be requirements for other designers. This is a project we did with a student and Marco Roos, testing certain soils. And to make it easier, also to like this biotope maps, this student, so Menno de Rode, 2 years ago, created this pattern language, which is basically a stepwise atlas. So atlas with different elements to make it easier to plan with this. For so what types of green are around at city level? There's so much stuff. It's online. If you go to repository TU Delft education, Menno de Rode, you can find it, and otherwise I can give you a link. But so it's, let's say these accessible rooftops or connected rooftops, rooftop landscapes, to go to compact eco-cities, or the link to surrounding landscapes. So that's basically from your doorstep, you can go out to the green in the city and go out to the landscapes outside the city. So here even densification as an urban park in a way. And of course, yeah, a lot of green walls, green roofs, all that technology is very necessary to know all this. I'm almost done. So species design interventions. So what at species level, there's a lot of knowledge on this. For instance, with BirdLife Netherlands, you have a checklist, Groen Bouwen, where you can look for what different species need. But yeah, the fun thing is also, if it's other species than in this list, yeah, you don't know. You have to consult an expert. So, but that is what I like about this topic. There's also this study, animal-aided design, but it's a group from Kassel in Germany, and they look at each life phase. So they say, okay, your bird is not always a bird. It's first an egg, and then it's a chick, and then it's this, and then like a newt, a salamander has also different phases, or a frog. So what do they need? What is required there? So this is this topic. And then yeah, there's well known the 4 or 5 V's. Maybe there's more actually, like veiligheid, so safety. So here we have the house sparrow, the common swift. A bee and a common pipistrelle, a bat. And yeah, they all need safety, food. They need places for reproduction. They need variation in the landscape. But they also need to move and dispersion throughout, verplaatsing. So these are some general elements, but also some specific ones for species. Then before I end, some extra notions and thoughts, because we are, after all, a faculty of architecture and the built environment. So this is what I just showed. What would you build here? Or maybe would it be a green building, a red building, a blue building with water? So I try to kind of challenge the students and our colleagues to think in new directions. So this is, for instance, the Daphne Schippersbrug in Utrecht. Why do I show this? Well, I show this because I think it's more than a bridge. Because this school is actually a pillar to this bridge. This bike path going down, so infrastructure, creates this courtyard over here. So it's linked to landscape architecture. So here I think infrastructure, landscape architecture, and urban planning come together in a very synergistic way, where they help each other. And this is a 2,000-year-old concept. It's a Roman villa. We see it all over. It's quite nice to live in, probably. Maybe in Florida, it's all over the place, but in many other places, it's very nice to live in. But what is this? 10 years ago, I probably would have been thrown out of this university for showing this. But is this really nonsense, or this? I don't know if it's nonsense, especially the direction we are now going in. Because this is what they built in Paris. This is a school in Paris, from the outside like this, but inside, look, how these children can actually learn and be there. How the concrete is made bioreceptive in such a way that it can also withstand cold weather. So there is much more possible than we think, and there's many more examples. And this is, of course, one of the most famous ones from Stefano Bueri in Milan. I've not visited, but please tell me, I don't know, is this a motorway or is it a rail track? Yes, so I think this is a very good first generation of green buildings. But what if we have this tower and the next generation of these towers will be like this, so that people can live in this urban aqueduct, but at the same time, look at systems level, where they link different parks and different neighborhoods with each other. So I I think there's still a lot to do here, and it's very interesting and very nice to be in this field. So thank you very much for your attention, and yeah, looking forward to the next speakers. Thank you.